ストーンフリー。ここが一番拳を出された。どうやらあんたも
スタープラチナ
ザ・ワールドオーバーヘッド。
バラストーンフリー。やれやれって感じだわ。
So boys, we made it. It's been over a year since the last YBA content update, and finally the Stone Free update is here. So the question on everyone's mind at this point is probably, was the wait worth it? And the answer to that is easy. No, it wasn't. Now I know I'm being a downer right off the bat, but you should have expected this. Let's be realistic here. There was absolutely no way that this update could have lived up to a 1-year hiatus. Now that's not saying that the update isn't good, because I actually think that the update is very good. I think that if we'd gotten this update after the Red Hot Chili Pepper update, after like, I don't know, a month or two, it would be incredible. It would be well worth the time. But the reality is that didn't happen. I think we're at the point where there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be apologists. They're going to say, well, at least we got something. And while I do agree with those people to some extent, I also think that we need to hold our standards in a higher regard. YBA was all but abandoned for over a year. And if you're just gonna forgive that because we got an update with some fairly solid balance changes and one new stand, you should probably raise your standards a little bit. Like I said, the update is good, but for the time being, it is not enough to forgive the fact that we haven't gotten anything in a year. Now, with the early downer stuff out of the way, I think we should talk about what's actually part of the update. I'm gonna do a rundown of pretty much everything that was important that was added with this update, so let's jump into it. So the obvious place to start is the fact that we still didn't get fucking free spec store. Okay, so the obvious place to start is Stone Free. It's the titular part of the update, so what do I think? Well, to put it bluntly, Stone Free is single-handedly the best part of this update, and nothing else that's part of it even comes close. I think the time and the effort that was put into Stone Free is very clearly on display here, and what I will say is if Stone Free is indicative of the new stands that we'll be getting in the future, as well as reworks to current stands, then YBA has an incredibly bright future. Now, the fact that we're going to have to wait 6 to 8 months to actually get any of those stands or reworks, that might be a bit of a problem. But if we do get anything in a reasonable amount of time, and it's up to this current standard, we're in really good hands. The animations, effects, sound effects, it's all superb, and comparing it to some of the stands that haven't gotten updates in a very long time, quite honestly, it's comical. Now, obviously, I'm gonna do a deep dive of Stone Free itself in its own separate video, probably a stand review, we'll see. So I'm not gonna talk about it in too much detail here, but all you need to know is it looks really cool and it seems pretty well balanced, but we'll find out how true that is in the coming days. Now, the other most obvious thing to address is the new map. So far from what I've seen, the new map is pretty well done, but I am a little bit confused as to why they even redid the map to begin with. The new map looks better than the old map, but I thought the old map was fine, so I don't quite get it. I think my theory of they decided to make a new map to make this update seem bigger than it actually was probably holds true, but maybe there's some stuff I'm missing here. I've wandered around quite a bit, the map seems very large, and I got lost quite often, so the introduction of those fast travel NPCs was life-saving, at least for now. And I think Uzu himself is making fun of me at this point, as they added a literal shop to the game with no shopkeeper that will sell you anything. There's items all about, but all you can do is sell your items as normal. Why you gotta do that to me? Come on, man, just put a shop it. In terms of other general stuff that doesn't directly apply to any sort of stands or balance changes, they doubled the spawn amount of all items in the entire game, which I assume also stacks with the double spawn rates on weekends. A long requested feature, which is item hotbar saving, was implemented, something that I didn't think was honestly ever coming. So now you can make it so that every single time you respawn, you've got the same things on the same binds. Basically, when you respawn in 1v1s, you won't have to go through your inventory to look for things or delete every single item except for one to make sure it's always on your one slot. They said a bunch of stuff about improving basic combat and hitboxes as well as performance, but I can't directly test those things, so I suppose we'll have to figure out how that works just over time. They improved the cooldown indicators, giving you actual indications of exactly how long until your moves are gonna come back, which I seriously appreciate. And they made it so you could spawn dummies in your private server. Although one thing to note about the private server that is slightly concerning is that my private server was automatically canceled as there was a price change. Now I'll be the first one to tell you that my memory sucks, so I don't know if this price is increasing or decreasing. But what I can tell you is if the price is increasing and the justification is that you can spawn dummies now, then that message from Uzu a little while back saying he wasn't doing it for the money, hoo boy, will that have aged poorly. Ball's in your court, Uzu. If this change was an increase and you thought nobody would notice, I noticed. I'll eat my words if that's not what this is, but I need to know the answer. Getting back on track, let's talk about the other half of this update, which is of course the balance changes. We'll kick things off with the changes to boxing. Boxing had its meat shield 1 and 2 upgrades increased by 1 point respectively. The meat shield upgrades are the ones that give you flat extra HP. Mastered Eye Gouge's blind was also reduced from 9 seconds to 6 seconds, and when you're holding boxing gloves, there's now an animation for blocking. Haman got a ton of buffs. Scarlet Overdrive had its wind-up time decreased, as well as the damage of the punch increased by 40%, and basically the entire skill tree had its point costs reduced. Now the question on everyone's mind, is Haman going to be the best spec again? And I can tell you, almost certainly, and it's probably gonna get nerfed. Spin, I forgot to record footage for, and it's 3:48 a.m., so I'm not gonna go do that. They made it so that Spin Punch is a block break rather than being perfect blockable, and they reduced some of the skill point costs. Spin is still gonna suck, and no one's gonna use it because they didn't do the thing that Paragon asked them to do, which is just make it so that you have permanent damage reduction. Vampire. People who are hit with life drain are gonna have iframes just like any other grab in the game. Ultraviolet Resist just got an overall buff versus the sun, as well as reducing the amount of extra damage you take from Haman. And there's a new thing you can buy in the skill tree, which makes it so you passively regenerate blood over time. This regeneration is very slow, but hey, it's there, should help in main game and Steel Ball Run. You can finally M1 with umbrellas, which is going to make Vampire actually usable in game modes other than 1v1s. And if you use a spec move while having the Vampire race and not the Vampire spec, then you're going to lose blood. In other words, a slight nerf to Vamp subspecs, but I don't see it doing a whole lot. I wish they would just remove it. Please just remove it. Star Platinum. The wording here is balanced inhale by increasing the duration by 3 seconds and making it so that while you're getting sucked in, you can block. Inhale now lasts forever, and I think that the trade-off of having extra time versus people being able to block is just gonna make it so that the stun takes forever. I don't know why they didn't just leave it alone and make it so you can block. The extra 3 seconds makes no sense, I don't get it. Also, Aura Kick's got a speed buff, that's fine, whatever. Star Platinum the World's Skull Crusher is no longer perfect blockable, and you can't use it in Time Stop. Hermit Purple's Grapple plus Vine Trap ability can't be perfect blocked anymore. That means that Hermit Purples are going to be able to spam like no tomorrow, so enjoy. Hierophant Green, when you hit people with marionette control, you're no longer going to be able to take away people's stands, so no more infinite Hierophant Green combos, thank God. The World had its Kick Barrage buffed, making it so that the last hit should true combo. I haven't tested it, I'm hoping it's true. And they finally removed the knockback from Road Roller, so hopefully we won't have people slowly falling out all the time anymore. I'm gonna talk about it later, but Road Roller's damage model is also radically different because of the new executions mechanic. So sometimes it does more and sometimes it does less damage, but again, we're gonna get there. Crazy Diamond, people who are in Rock Trap can't have their stands desummoned. I was praying to my lucky stars that Uzu would not take Paragon's advice and make it so you couldn't barrage in the Rock Trap either, and he didn't do that. So we're good to go. Crazy Diamond is not going to infinite combo you. Crisis averted. The Hand. Oh my God. No fucking way. My life is complete. I can die happy. My purpose on this earth has been fulfilled. You can no longer erasure accelerate through walls. Killer Queen and Killer Queen bites the dust. If you hit someone with the bomb and you detonate it, they can't take damage anymore. Red Hot Chili Peppers, there's a bunch of crap here. They made it so that lightning jabs can't be perfect blocked anymore. They reduced all of the costs of electricity on moves aside from electrify. They buffed the speed that you get charged when you use your guitar. And they made it so that you just passively regenerate electric charge without doing anything. I think with all of these things, Red Hot Chili Pepper could potentially be extremely strong. But nobody's gonna play it anyway because it's Red Hot Chili Pepper. We'll see. Gold Experience, here's a heavy hitter. You're not gonna be able to avoid the final hit of the beatdown anymore. Thank God. The beatdown also is probably significantly better because of the execution mechanic, but again, we'll get there. Summon Life Form with the Eagle is gonna move faster. There was a 15 damage poison effect added to the Frog Punch. Gold Experience got a Kick Barrage, which is basically just a copy-paste of the world's Kick Barrage, and the costs of the healing was reduced by 1 for some reason. I think my mind is failing me, but it also seemed like it healed more than it used to, but again, I'm probably just going nuts. Moving on to GER, and the things that people were complaining about did happen, so sorry. RTZ can't be used in stun anymore. However, if you use it on a time-related move that'll put people into the cutscene, they're not gonna be able to move anymore, which means you can do anything to them. They fixed the wrong model being in the cutscene, and they reduced the skill point costs from 8 to 6. They also made it so that Nullification 0, the counter, has a massively reduced stun, but also has a reduced cooldown and no longer has any windup. This gives me a chance to comment on the fact that they nerfed basically all the counters in the game and then gave them no windup. I think this is the best possible outcome because counter windup was horrible, and actually having your counters work at the expense of them not being as good is definitely the better solution. So whoever decided to make this decision, personally, a thank you from me to you for not continuing with this counter startup nonsense. It was dumb. With all these nerfs to GER though, can we acknowledge the fact that GER takes like 49 skill points to just get all the moves? It's basically a minimum of 49 to make it usable. Can we get a reduction on that? That's ridiculous. Sticky Fingers got butchered. Zipper Punch is cancelable now, which basically just deletes the whole stand. Hopefully we get a rework so that it's actually usable. Zipper Uppercut can't be perfect blocked anymore. Too bad that you can just jump. Whoops. I forgot to record Six Pistols. You can't hit people while they're getting multi-shot anymore. The time that you're in Aerosmith's Vola Barrage was decreased drastically, but the damage was increased to compensate. Right now it's bugged, I'm sure it'll get fixed. Actually, this is YBA, so I'm not sure if I should say that. But currently, if you walk towards someone while you're barraging, it just does nothing. That's weird. King Crimson had its Epitaph nerfed with the stun no longer confirming any sort of moves other than maybe M1s. I think this is a good change. No more frame 1 free combos, fine by me. And if you use Impale, you're not gonna be able to get your cheese combos anymore because you'll actually have iframes standing up. Impale is also an execute, although this one seems to either not be working or they didn't compensate it with enough damage, because it doesn't do near as much damage as some of the other executes are capable of doing. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not, but it just seems very underwhelming comparatively. King Crimson Requiem is no longer going to be able to pose while Reality Marble is active, although it should be noted that the opponent can still pose. And if you get ragdolled while using Dimensional Slash, it'll cancel the move, so no more hitting someone with a Jawbreaker and then getting hit anyway. Also, the stun on the Epitaph for King Crimson Requiem has the same effect as King Crimson, although if you're using Raging Demon, it's still Raging Demon. Seamoon got butchered. Gravitational Shift doesn't work on ragdolled players, and Uppercut doesn't force the stand away. In other words, Seamoon's gonna be and nobody's going to play it. They needed to compensate these changes with something, whether it was a damage increase or a different way that some of the moves worked, I don't know, but they didn't do that, so now Seamoon's gonna be worthless. Made in Heaven, you can't permanently loop speed anymore. Nothing hugely surprising here. My favorite stand in the game, Silver Chariot Requiem. It said that they boosted the overall stand damage, but as far as I'm concerned, they only boosted the damage on Arrow Barrage, which they still shouldn't have done. One of my friends was showing me a video of doing 3.8 damage per hit on Arrow Barrage while boosted with Haman, which did basically half someone's health bar, so maybe they should reconsider this. We'll see. They also did the really stupid thing, which was to make it so that your barrage goes on cooldown when you use Arrow Barrage, basically making it Boxing Barrage 2.0. Here's what happens now if you ever use Arrow Barrage first. You'll use it, you'll get Barrage back, Jawbreaker. They get free damage, you lose for using your move. Fun stuff. You can't pose during your own shadow or use Conqueror's Will during your own shadow. Conqueror's Will has an increased global cooldown, increased windup, and you're not gonna be able to and you can't combo off of it anymore. That's compensated by the fact that you can't block during Conqueror's Will anymore, so it won't reduce the damage that way. Overall, I don't know why they increased damage. I don't know why they changed the way Arrow Barrage worked. They should have left both of those things alone, and honestly, the stand would be extremely strong, and they wouldn't have janked everything out. But they didn't do that, and here we are. Tusk Act 1 through 4 improved the hitbox of nail projectiles. And from what I can tell, that's true. My nails weren't getting stuck on each other, and when I shot them where they should have gone, they went there. That being said, we can't have everything work because the wormholes still can get stuck on walls and vanish. Please just make it so that the wormholes go through walls. Thanks in advance. The World AU had its Knife Throw Upgrade 3 removed, and there's a sound added to Chop. It's still got the revolver in the same place that it was before though, so the World AU is gonna remain ridiculously overpowered. Scary Monster's minion is no longer gonna break when it gets ragdolled, the damage on its bite was decreased, and there was a windup added to head charge as well as a sound effect. Pounce also had slight end lag added, but I couldn't feel it at all. They didn't put it in the patch notes, but it seemed like they may have fixed the range on the barrage not being long enough, but I also might just be losing it, I'm not sure. I hope they did because that was really dumb. And finally, the last thing on stands, the world over heaven can't reality overwrite you forever anymore. Cool stuff, thank God. So we're finally gonna talk about the elephant in the room, which is the time stop changes. And oh my God, they were so close to getting these perfect and then dropped the ball right at the end. But I'll explain myself after I explain what they actually did. Basically, they made it so that if you use any of those long knockdowns like Heaven Ascended Smite that remove your stand, you can't time stop for 2 seconds while the people are still on the ground. But they also made it so that if it doesn't directly do damage, so if you block break someone for example, you can still time stop as normal. On top of that, they made it so you can't bypass the damage cap with damage that's done right at the end of time stop, and made it so that you don't get stunned at the end of time stop, so you don't get infinite comboed. Overall, sounding really good so far. Not only that, but they reduced the amount of time stop resistance stands have time stop resistance for, so they might actually suffer the brunt of time stop for once. Except for they won't. And now I'll explain why and expose the problem here. The issue is, the old way that you used to be able to get damage with time stop against TS resistant stands was to block break or parry them, time stop, and then barrage while they were still stunned from the block break or parry. You cannot do that anymore. I assume in an attempt to patch the extended time stop glitch as well as the glitch that made it so you could time skip in time stop, they added a boatload of end lag to using the time stop itself. And so while it used to be that as soon as the time stop effect came up on your screen, you could act, making it so you could do a barrage and stop the time stop resist stand from running away, now you can't do anything. But it's better to show you examples than to just talk out my ass. The recovery time after being block broken is around 2.02 seconds. If you break someone's block breaker and then immediately time stop, the amount of time required to act is around 3.24 seconds. If you're either blind or can't do simple math, that means that the person who got block broken has a full second to press literally any button to get out of your time stop. If they hit stand jump, game over, buddy, good luck. But you know what? What about if you parry the enemy? Well, if you're basically completely perfect and time stop right after your parry, your actionable seconds is up to 2.18, meaning that even if you parry time stop someone, they still have 1/10 of a second to press that stand jump key, which odds are they're mashing anyway. The point being, I was hoping that we would get some changes to make it easier to fight people with TS resist. And instead, somehow they made it harder to fight people with TS resist. I'm completely at a loss with this. I don't get it. I think the odds of anyone ever taking my advice at all is pretty low, but I'm begging you, YBA development team, please change it back so that you can barrage right after time stopping so that TS resist can't just run away forever. And the last thing on the whole update list that I need to talk about is the new execution mechanics. The execution mechanics are interesting, albeit extremely flawed with the current game we have and the systems that are in place. I think in theory, the execution mechanic is really cool, but in practice, it's not really gonna work and it's just gonna make things feel more random. But what is the execution mechanic, you ask? Well, the execution mechanic makes it so that certain moves in the game will do more or less damage depending on how low the opponent's health bar is. So if you hit someone with a Star Platinum the World beatdown, for example, if they're pretty low on HP, maybe a quarter left, it might just outright kill them. Whereas if you use it while they have full HP, it'll barely make a dent. The patch notes read that it was included in order to make the moves be more skill-based, but I don't see at all how this mechanic has anything to do with skill, mostly because there's no health bars in this game. You can kind of assume and guess over time and get better at it, figuring out how much health people have, but at the end of the day, you're never gonna know how much health somebody has unless you've been directly fighting them and keeping track of every single hit. So what the execution mechanic really has done is made things really inconsistent. Sometimes you'll go to use a beatdown and it will barely do anything. And sometimes you'll go to use a beatdown and it will just kill the opponent. Overall, I think that the reduction in consistency on moves with this change is pretty jarring just because of how many different factors can play into how much health people have, as well as the lacking in health bars. And as I've said before, I don't really mind there not being health bars in YBA. But with the execution mechanic now, it's really weird to me that there are no health bars. When you think about all the different specs in the game, Vampire with its blood, Boxing with the damage reduction, Haman with the damage increase and the damage reduction, Pluck with nothing, it's gonna take a varying amount of hits to get people low no matter what you're doing. So I don't really understand the point, but again, this is day 2 that I'm recording this. I haven't even played a match of the game yet. So for all I know, this is the second coming. It just doesn't seem to make very much sense. It should make some moves that were bad, like Tuskak 4's beatdown and GE's beatdown, a little bit better, but overall, I don't get it. Anyways, this video took an absolute eternity to make, and people don't really understand that because they're 6 and they don't understand video creation. I had to go record footage for literally every single stand in here, which means logging in and out of like 50 accounts. And then I had to talk, and then I had to go back and edit it. And guys, making videos is not like a simple process, especially if I don't want them to be complete shit. If I really wanted to, I could have hopped into ranked for like an hour with Stone Free and then just talked about the changes and showed you guys nothing. I could have done that. I didn't do that because I wanted the video to actually be good. Was it good? Still probably not, but it is what it is. Anyways, I'm sorry this is late. I think I'm just gonna take a break for a little bit and burn through some backlog because after the grind last night until 4 a.m., I am burnt out as all hell. I just wanted to play Tarkov, I just wanted to go to a party with some friends, and apparently YBA had to update at the most inconvenient possible time. So anyways, that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.